Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this deep woo-woo episode on Monday, The World of Enchantment with Catherine Edwards. This is number 4. You can find her work, of course, at catherineedwards.life, and also here on YouTube at Catherine Edwards. Catherine, welcome back to the show.
Hello, hello. How time flies. It seems like it's been far too long, actually. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Catherine?
I'm like a roller coaster, and I've never liked roller coasters. It's been a bumpy ride the last week. It's been really, really good. Today I've had the most amazing day. There's been ups and downs. I think there's a lot of people really feeling the pressure at the moment and reacting accordingly.
Right.
So,
well, I have to admit, I'm seeing that too, but I'm somewhat detached. As many of my viewers know, I had some water damage to the house earlier this spring, and it took all this time to get the material and the workers to line up to come and do the repairs. So they're here now for the next 2 weeks doing work. So I've been busy outside, making sure everything's done appropriately, as I'm also doing all of this huge production schedule, both here on YouTube and on our pay-per-view. So I haven't paid too much attention, but I do feel it. So at the same time, I feel what you're saying, the roller coaster event, because I'm getting the emails for sure. And I'm seeing people are saying, oh man, we're so depressed. The things came out last Friday. It wasn't what we were expecting. The media, again, is lying to us. And they're saying, oh, the guy still won. Again, without getting into too many details here. So a lot of people just feel like they're being pushed around every side. And it's hard for everyone. I totally feel that. What are your thoughts on all of this, though? In one hand, I'm being forced to deal with all these things around the house. And of course, winter's coming too. So by the time those guys are done, the repairs and the rentals on the house, I'm going to have to be winterizing. So I might have another week or two of work. And then after that, I should be back to full time doing this work here. But what's happened is that's also forced me to kind of not pay attention so much to all of the data feeds coming in. How are you managing this right now? Because if you start going down all of the rabbit holes that are coming out right now, you'd be at this 24 hours a day and still you couldn't keep up with the news. So where do you have that balance, Catherine?
It's a really good question. I mean, over the last probably 2 months in particular, 2 to 3 months, I've really, really cut back on the amount of information that I'm listening to, because for the first sort of year, I was taking it all in because it was such a steep learning curve. So there were certain things that I'd known and been awake about for years. And then there were other things that were completely new to me. And it was a really steep learning curve. And it was almost all consuming. And it was awful because it was almost like my work was getting in the way because there was so much to learn. And I felt I was on such a steep catch-up curve. And now I've got to the stage where for the last few months where it's almost like, yeah, I know that there's not a lot of new information coming out. So now's the time to really, really look after ourselves, because anyone who's involved in holistic health, like I am, any sort of healing work, we always talk about how it's got to be, you can't do anything until you've got your own vessel in order. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so, so important. And one of my friends that I used to work with years ago on a health side of things, he used to say that people should really pay attention to the saying, mind your own business. And nowadays, we certainly say it in the UK, it's a rude thing to say. If you tell someone to mind their own business, it's a bit like telling them to bugger off.
Right.
But when he was explaining it was never intended as that. It was intended to say, we have to get our own house in order and lead by example first before butting our nose into everything else. And what I've seen a lot of, what I'm very aware of at the moment, probably just because I've been through this really steep learning curve and then sort of plateaued, is that I think a lot of people are still, and I've done it in the past and I'm sure will in the future, but it's very easy to project and blame and take it out on other people as a sort of almost displacement behavior to having to look within and looking where you're at and what you need to really resolve in your own life.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, you're absolutely right. And I think I love that. Yeah. Mind your own business. Be mindful of your house, your business. Yeah. I never thought about it that way too. I always thought it was a bugger off or F off kind of comment. But now more than ever, you and I say this all the time, like fix yourself and you're going to fix 100 people. Right. So lead by example, I think is the saying. I've been at this for months out now too. You and I think I've said this on your show for the first time, where I was being guided to put even more effort into my vessel in the last couple of months, making sure that I would be ready for something that hasn't occurred yet, by the way, mind you, but I know is coming. It's right in front of us. So it has to do with some energies hitting us. So the body's ability to hold these frequencies and maybe to transmute them is one thing, and also dealing with all the stress that's coming up. That also takes a huge toll on the body. So anything you can do to increase your body's capabilities right now, I think is worthwhile endeavor and use of your time for sure. Ronnie says, hi, JC Catherine. Wait, did you skip off? Hello, beautiful chat. Yes. Hello, beautiful chat. Thank you for joining us here today. I'll try, as I always do, I'll try to bring your comments on here during the show. We have quite a few topics to talk about, but really what we wanted to do is basically create this hangout again where like-minded people can just sit together, chill, understand we're all in the same place, we're all having these issues, trying to figure out the balance of information that we take in, and also trying to disconnect from that and pay attention to reality, our family, our friends, our neighbors, our gardens, our dogs, our cats, our horses, right? So there's all that going on, but there's this huge pressure, especially when you're in this red pill community, to stay on the page. And to what extent, do you really need to be 100% on the page with everything? As you said, once you get the gist of it, you got it. Unless there's really new information coming in that's substantive, maybe it's time to put your foot on the brake pedal there a little bit, and then put your foot on the gas pedal on your home improvements and your body improvements. Well, let me ask you this as we get started here for today. What's happening in the UK right now? I posted this earlier today, and I saw panic buying last week, and the shelves were kind of empty. And now this. What's going on? Is this a setup? How would you characterize this for people who are living outside of the UK who don't really understand here why you guys are getting all of these shortages all of a sudden?
Yeah, I mean, it's been trickling in for a while. For the last sort of couple of months, some shops I've been going into, I've been noticing shortages. I ordered some medical supplies for one of my animals, and that took a long while to come. And then Friday, it was a really special day for me because it was my son's graduation. So took the grandparents up. We had the most amazing day. I went and filled my car up with diesel as normal, no problem at all. But unfortunately, it was a very long drive, so I used up all the diesel. And then Saturday comes, and we were meant to be having a delivery of a load of logs here. Now, I never watch the news, obviously, so I didn't realise there was even a problem. And the guy who was meant to be delivering our logs said, I can't come, I've got no diesel, everywhere's out. And so then I sort of had a look at what was going on. Sure enough, saying that there's a shortage of truck drivers, no fuel to be had anywhere. So panic buying, then you're getting people criticising the panic buyers. Then you're getting the people that are panic buying reacting really badly, because a lot of people, they've got loved ones to look after. They've got people that they're responsible for. They have to be able to use their cars to be able to care for the people they're looking after or the animals they're looking after. So all these judgments flying, and the emotions are just so high because we've had a bombardment. I'll be careful of my words here, but for the last few weeks, we've had the children going back to school, the older children, sort of young adults going to universities and colleges. We all know what they're forcing on them. We've had the fact that they've removed parental consent in a lot of ways from 11 up. So there's just been bombardment. And now they're putting the squeeze. Now, my view on the fuel is it's complete setup. I've seen enough things from truck drivers saying we've got the fuel there and we've got the truck drivers. They're just not letting us deliver it. But it's another form of control, isn't it? And what do masochistic, sadistic, control freaks do? They get people in a fear vibration by taking away their freedom. And in the UK, our public transport is appalling. I mean, I live in the middle of nowhere. You cannot get anywhere without a car. I mean, I'm miles away from any sort of train station or anything. There's a lot of people that don't live anywhere near public transport. So when they're then, it's just another way of taking our freedom, our choices, and controlling people. And it's very effective. And I've never seen, even some really close friends and things, I've just seen they're just completely losing their shit at the moment, because it's just one thing after another. And however much you try and sort of stay centered, there's some things you really can't do without, or it's putting you in a very vulnerable position if you can't even get your to see your elderly relatives, or if you can't go to look after your animals or something like that, or you can't go and get food.
Mm-hmm. Well, here in Canada, we've had a few truthers, whistleblowers suggest that perhaps this paperwork idea here is to eventually go down to the granular level where if you don't have your paperwork, you also can't get your fuel to put into your car, or that would tie in somehow to the green plan, the agenda, all those agendas without naming them. So I was like, well, that sounds like, there's that totalitarianism crypto that David Icke talks about. I see that going on. But how do we tie that into the UK? I mean, you guys have just abandoned this paperwork issue. So what do you make of that? Is that what is this?
Well, one, that's not actually true, JC. And so that I just want to pick up on Christine's comment, though, from the chat, where she's saying that the tanker drivers are saying no shortage, MSM lying, shortage caused by panic buying. Well, I disagree with that. Again, it's very easy to blame it. No one would be panic buying if they hadn't. I went to 5 petrol stations today, all completely shut, no fuel anywhere near me. People were, Friday, no one was panic buying. Saturday, people went to fill up, you couldn't, everywhere was shut. So it's very easy. It's this control mechanism again, isn't it, to put one group of people against another by blaming it on our behavior rather than the people that are pulling the puppet strings at the top.
Right.
So I would really caution people, because I'm seeing so many people in all sorts of things just reacting to blame and others. And I would really caution people from jumping down that road, because I personally think that's exactly what they want. They want to turn people against each other and pretend it's that group of people's fault and that group of people's fault, because what it does is it takes a distraction away from who's really pulling the strings at the top, in my opinion. So I think we need to just hold fire a bit. And I spoke on one of my lives about having compassion. There's a lot of people in very vulnerable positions. One of my really good friends is waiting for a kidney and pancreas transplant. She's completely dependent on her carers to come in and help look after her and her dog. And if they can't get petrol to get to her, she's in a very vulnerable position. So I really hope that people at this time just stop and have compassion for what everyone else is going through and direct any anger they might have about the people that really deserve it, which is the people at the top who are causing this fear-mongering, deliberately stopping certain supplies getting to us.
Okay, well, let's get into that. And I have to agree with you. Nothing makes sense. So if nothing makes sense, you have to step back and say, okay, how are we being played? Let me see the big picture here. So let's go back to this news article. You said this isn't exactly true. So explain what you mean here. Again, we'll watch the language so that we can have this conversation here. What's going on here with this?
Well, everything that I'm seeing on the Telegram chats and things from people who are involved in the industry, so from the truck drivers and from people who are distributing the fuel, they're all saying there isn't really a shortage. They've got it sitting there at the depots. They're just stopping it being delivered. So it looks like it's a manipulated shortage, not a real one. So, and in which case you've got to ask why. And when you look at the reaction it's caused and the fear reaction of actually, making people, again, it's another way of taking freedom away from people, isn't it? In the UK, a lot of people live in rural locations. A lot of people can't get anywhere without their cars. So it's another control mechanism. So I just do not believe personally that it's a real sort of fuel shortage. I think we're coming into the winter. It's like the big headmaster saying you will obey and you will do what you're told. And if you don't, this is what we can do to you, just like this. Is my opinion on it. Now, I could be wrong, but certainly it's what I'm...
Well, here in Canada, we're kind of being prepped for shortages of at least the propane. So I heard this 2 weeks ago. And of course, propane generators and all this stuff. Like, there's huge lineups for this and huge delays if people are trying to get these parts replaced or these new generators for their houses and all that. I've been going through that same process here too. And I was like, well, how do they know already there's a shortage? What's going on? So it's kind of like, oh, we know there's another wave coming up and we're going to have to lock down again. I'm like, how do you guys know what's going on here? So, okay, let's go back to what's on the screen here again. You said that's not the case, because
I don't think they say the headlines like this, and then the next thing you hear is they say, but we must keep all options open for the winter. And then I saw quite a lot this weekend on various different groups where they're looking at contracts to bring us into so they've got the IT already set up so that we could join into the EU, that scheme. So I would have no confidence at all that they really. So if you take the university students at the moment, they said that they would abandon the paperwork you needed to get into nightclubs, bars and things, which is obviously was a major coercion factor for getting the young adults to do what they wanted them to do.
Right.
But then what they did is all the universities, even though the government didn't enforce it, a lot of the universities did and said, well, we've got to keep you all safe, so therefore we are enforcing it. So there's got to be deals going on behind the back. There has got to be deals, because there's no way so many universities would come to that conclusion on their own, because, again, we all know it's not based on any scientific data.
So perhaps this is just a temporary reprieve, an escape valve, so people say, oh, okay, phew, and so to try to limit maybe the protesters amount or something like that. Because we've seen this in Canada too. All year we've had our prime minister say, oh, no, we don't want any of those paperworks. We're not going that way. And of course, right now, that's exactly what they're doing. Complete opposite. Even here in our province, so we have different provinces here in Canada, similar to the states in the United States, and our provincial leaders all through the year too, we're saying, oh no, we don't want a double tier or two-tier society. We're not going to do that. And of course now they're doing that. So every time they say one thing, they're actually doing the exact opposite. So when you see stuff like this from Bloomberg, you kind of think, if they're saying that, what the hell are they doing really behind the scheme? And what you're saying is perhaps they're integrating this back with the whole EU paperwork scheme. Wow, that's fascinating.
And I think it is tricky, isn't it? Because we've all got our own theories. And at this stage, it's quite difficult to prove, because it's difficult to prove even on the alternative channels what information you're seeing is valid and what isn't. And,
actually, Catherine, I'll challenge you on that. It's not very hard to prove. Well, okay, I'm being facetious, but it's not hard to prove. Whatever the MSN is telling you, just do the exact opposite. You'll know what the truth is. Like, they're giving you a gift of telling you exactly what the truth is by lying to your face. So, whereas maybe 10 years ago, there would be a little bit of truth and a little bit of fakery in the news. Now it's all like 100%, especially with respect to this particular topic. It's always exactly the opposite of the truth. But I know what you mean. For the normies, how do you have this conversation with the normies? That's
what I was saying, JC, is not to do. I think we all know that with the MSN, but even on the Telegram channels and what you would call the truther channels, there's a lot of misinformation going around. So, for example, a classic thing is you'll see videos going round which are supposedly showing a rally happening now and things like this, and then it proves that it was taken 5 years ago. So unfortunately, even on the Telegram channels and the other things, there's still quite a lot of people just sharing stuff when they don't know whether it's true or not, really.
Well, there's that, but there's also a coordinated effort to share disinformation through these platforms to confuse everybody who's on these platforms too. So it's not just truthers who are perhaps repeating things that they cannot verify. It's also a coordinated attack to disinform the population there as well, as we're all trying to wake up and figure out what the hell's going on here. Wow. Okay, let's get into this topic here. Janine and I, and we'll have to be very careful on the choice of language here as well. So Janine and I did this very special episode yesterday. It was saying you look kangaroo, yes. Either that or you look like a rabbit there. I'm not sure. So Janine and I did this decode yesterday for what's on the screen here. And this was based on an interview that Nicholas had with Tamara a couple of days ago, and also information that Tamara had shared with Bryce on Esoteric Atlanta, who was on the show also last week here. And so this was absolutely a fascinating episode, because again, when you're looking at things and how they're transpiring down under, it really makes you go, what the hell is really going on there? So from your feeling and from your research right now, what can you tell the audience, and again, choosing the words here carefully, as to what you think is truly happening down there?
It's so hard, isn't it? Because it's such a huge place, the land of the kangaroos, that now I've got Bob's on the chat here. He's one of my friends in Australia. Obviously, David Cohen, I speak to quite a lot. I've got a couple of other friends and actually a cousin in Australia. But they're all spread in different corners of the continent. So they're all experiencing vastly different realities, which is quite interesting. What I found interesting about the Tamara shows, which I listened to, both the Bryce one and the Nicholas Van Yarman one, is it's so interesting, isn't it? Because we've heard so many times that this is the head of the snake. And then, you know, so we've heard it that the land of the kangaroos is the head of the snake. Then we've heard that the V word in Italy is the head of the snake. Then we've heard that the royal family in the UK are the head of the snake. And it's like, well, God, it's got a lot of heads, this snake then.
It's called the Hydra for a reason, yes.
But there's a lot happening. And then we're hearing about the big bangs happening at a certain distance below ground. I then also had a very interesting video sent to me today, which I'll send you after the show, about some WikiLeaks stuff. Now, I'll be careful how I say this. How can I say this? Was going back 15 years at least, showing how birds and people were by various things, electric things put out into the atmosphere. It's quite horrific, actually. And I think, and that the purpose of that video was basically saying this is why they're keeping you in, folks, in certain areas, but which was basically applying that the people that wear the black hats are still have got a lot of tools at their disposal in certain areas, basically. So from what I've seen in the land of the Roos, there seems to be some certain areas where perhaps it's not really the, what can I say, the men in uniforms that are meant to be keeping the peace, that they might not be the real ones. They might be other ones that are brought in.
There appear to be some people dressed up and acting the role right now, too. I've seen this. I can't verify this, of course, just watching the videos, but there appears to be some fuckery going around, pardon my French. And on top of that, we're getting reports that the government and some of the military forces are curtailing the media, and especially the helicopters, from filming above some of these areas. And we were wondering why. We've heard that some of the reporters were fined $4,000 or $5,000 also for filming the people in blue uniforms. And so we're wondering what's going on. In this particular episode with Janine yesterday, we kind of fell off our chair because some of that appeared to be driven by the good guys. And what came out from the cards was that although it's horrible and we feel it and we feel for our friends who live down under, if some of the good guys are actually orchestrating these blackouts or these coverage blackouts, it could be because they're actually clearing some things that are right now too sensitive to be made public. So that in a way is good news. But again, very difficult to navigate here through this fog of war or the fog of woo here. It's very, very thick.
And do you think also, JC, that that there's a fine line, isn't there? I think we all know where we are in a war. I don't think there's anyone on this chat that isn't on realizing how serious this all is. And at some stage, you know, in some things, it's really hard because, of course, I agree exactly with what Health Tank says. A lot of acting going on. What's difficult to work out is who's employing the actors at this stage. And for me, I'm finding that quite difficult to discern. I need to have a bit of sit down and actually go in and go quiet to do my meditation and do it. But I think there's an awful lot of acting going on. Who's controlling those actors and why, and what their objectives are. And I think it just comes back to, again, we do literally have to question everything. And where you can, get to people who are really on the ground and listen to what they're actually seeing and what they're actually saying. Because otherwise it's very difficult to not to get into this hysteria. And it is really hard. I mean, you know, I found it quite difficult, as I think everyone knows. I've got a daughter out in America, and they've announced that you can only, we haven't been able to fly in the UK. Normal people haven't been able to fly to the States throughout this whole thing. You have to have a special visa. And now they've said that if you've had that, as of November, you will. And then you're hearing that they're saying that no one's going to be allowed to fly out of America without that. So you've got to keep an eye on what's going on in one respect, but also just work very hard so that you're not focusing. I think someone said it in the chat, you know, energy flows where attention goes. So for me, it's a constant awareness to make sure that I'm keeping enough an eye on what's going on to know whether my daughter's going to be safe or not, but equally not to put attention where I don't want it to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I totally agree with that. And, you know, on that topic also, we did this decode on the La Palma volcano. And what also came up in the cards there is that they're trying to, okay, so part of this is organized. So just maybe bear with me for this conversation. There seems to be an attempt to use perhaps these natural occurrences to exacerbate the situation, to perhaps create a tsunami.
Yeah,
The east coast of the United States. And the reason they would try to do that is because apparently, and this again is conjecture, at this stage in the game, perhaps some of the things that go boom have been removed from some of these strategic places by the white hats along the coast. So they're trying to find a plan B or plan C to that strategy. So there's that going on there. But what was also fascinating, in yesterday's video, we talked about Maureen Dautin. She's very knowledgeable in occult matters. She has a YouTube channel, and she was talking about the fact that something's changed on the planet very recently, where matter itself no longer wishes to basically prostitute itself to bad actors, meaning that matter would now act in a moral way here on the planet. So that suggests that the bad actors can no longer use, for example, the ley lines, the energies of the planet, the material here on the planet, the gold, the silver, and all these things that they use to their projects towards hurting humanity. And vice versa, that also means that humanity might now have access to these elements if only we knew how to access them, and perhaps come to it in a peaceful way to create this new earth that we want. Poet Felony is saying, hey, JC, when can we get a mystic gathering in the US on the calendar? Post New Earth. Yes, at some point here, I'm not even allowed to travel myself with all these restrictions, and apparently they're going to get worse before they get better. But what he's describing there, this new earth that we all want to create, I thought it was absolutely fascinating that the way she called it, she says, natural law is now in effect. And so there has been a change here. And I don't know if that has to do also with, what was the other person's name who did the Australia decode? Raytana? How do I pronounce her name? Okay, I forget, I'm getting a brain freeze here. At any rate, there was something that happened a couple of weeks ago where she was suggesting perhaps a solar flare was also changing the frequency and activating things on the planet here. So there's a lot of weird woo happening at the same time. And perhaps that's why, too, that these bad actors are such in a rush to try to finish their mandates right now, because they know their time is up and that the tables are going to be turned on them, meaning that the universe is now favoring the freedom of humanity, as opposed to maybe in this last cycle where that was not the case. What are your thoughts on that? And while you talk, I'll try to bring up the video from this lady for the audience here as well.
Yeah. Well, I really agree with it. So I always go with what I'm seeing with my animals, not just the animals, because I've got loads of animals myself. I've also got a lot of wildlife around me, but also I work with other people's animals. And I know the first show we did, you know, weeks and weeks ago, I said that a lot of the animals were acting really strange. What I'm seeing at the moment are my all the ones that I'm interacting with, is they're really peaceful. They're doing really well. My garden, the wildlife is thriving, absolutely thriving. Can't believe my vegetable garden. So I would say from a nature's point of view, something has shifted over the last 6 weeks, which I have seen with my own eyes by observing the wildlife, the nature, etc., and very much for the positive. I did see a lot of the humans were seemed to have quite big reactions, and Janine and I spoke about this last week, to the full moon, the latest full moon.
Oh yeah, that was huge. Yeah,
a really sort of huge release. And I think as a species, us humans, more than any other species on the planet, well, I'm probably talking about what we would call as normal species. I'm not going into the alien world sort of things. That's
right.
not something I know.
Let's call them the organic humans for now.
Yeah, the organic humans and the organic animals, and that are on this planet. In terms of how we're doing, humans live a lot more in our headspace often than our heart space, whilst the animal kingdom and nature live a lot more from their heart space than in their headspace. So I think sometimes as humans, we feel everything so powerfully because we've got this complete contrast where the world is drawing us to be more from our heart space and our heart center. Mm-hmm. But we've been taught over our lives, particularly people of my age, to live very much from this head space. So I think we've got that real contrast and that dichotomy that's affecting us, whilst the animals just react to what they're feeling, and they react in real time, and you see it, and it's fantastic to see. So I'm feeling really positive about where the energy of the planet is, even though my human brain is seeing a lot of things that I'm not liking at all. When I'm looking at how the animal kingdom is responding, for me, there's been a massive positive shift over the last sort of month or so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, absolutely. So the name was Tamara. Sorry. Thank you. Libby and a few people corrected me. Sometimes when you do these live shows, you go like, what was I saying again? I'm trying to, there's many screens here to go live and all these comments together. So let me tie a few things together that you just said here too. So going back to what Tamara was saying about this energy wave hitting the planet, which perhaps is what triggered this video by Doreen Dotin. So let me start by that. And this is the video here. Revised laws of nature are in effect. So let me bring that link down to the live chat for you guys here. She's from Israel, and I got to tell you, she's very unique in the way she communicates. What's the expression? She doesn't suffer any fools. I think that's the expression in English. But by that, she means she's very, very... she doesn't have patience for stupidity or for anything else. I absolutely love her style. At any rate, please go watch this video in the context of learning what we're discussing here today about somehow maybe these laws of nature having changed here for humanity. Let me see if I can bring the title. There you go. So Revised Laws of Nature in Effect, and that's Doreen Dotin on YouTube. And the link is now in the live chat for you guys. Now, so let's tie in with that, this article that I posted a couple of days ago on my Twitter. And this, of course, was officialdom letting us know that something's happening in space right now, which probably will cause, and I'm just going to show you the language they're using, could prompt an internet apocalypse lasting several months. So here again, now we're seeing in physicality what a lot of the remote viewers, the psychics were saying. We might get these calms down, 3 days of darkness, blackouts, communication blackouts, all of these things. And now the mainstream media is actually putting meat to that bone. So we could be a little bit closer to these events than we think. And as Tamara was saying, something did happen maybe a week ago or 2 Saturdays ago, I believe it was, that triggered something in both humanity, but also the planet itself. So I'm wondering if this ties into what Doreen was saying. And of course, Doreen has probably no idea what Tamara is talking about. She's coming at it from a different point of view, but still they're talking about a big change and a big shift here. Somebody was saying in the chat that, of course, the Schumann resonance was off the chart. It's been acting up quite a bit. And of course, this is just in the last couple of hours. So there's a lot going on there. So I'm wondering, Dr. Paul Laviolette, like 20 years ago or so, he wrote this book, The Galactic Super Waves, plural, with an S. And a lot of people thought that that perhaps would have hit us in 2012, the end of the Mayan calendar and all these things. And from what I'm understanding now, even though that was hyped up at the time from mainstream media, it appears that we are having these multiple waves hit us, and each time increasing that frequency. And I think perhaps, and I'm just saying perhaps, and maybe the audience can tell us if they agree or not, or what they're feeling into is, I feel that perhaps the people who control this planet are very much aware of these waves. They've been tracking them. This is why they have the Lucifer telescope, the Vatican, and all these guys. And that they know for some reason that perhaps these waves have now accelerated, where they thought they had so much time to maybe boot us into a new slavery system that is more modern than the current one we're in. Now they're being forced to expose themselves to try to accelerate their plans. What do you guys think in the chat? Does that make sense? Would that explain the craziness that we're seeing now, and the fact that these people are exposing themselves for who they really are? For the first time maybe in our lives, we're actually seeing how crazy and desperate they actually are. And I think this is going to get worse as we go forward here. They're just going to show themselves even more. What are your thoughts on all of this, Catherine? How does this all tie in for you?
Well, I did get a bit distracted reading the comments while you were saying that. So if I could rein me back in. But I think everything's exposing itself so much now, and it's just wonderful. The conversations we're having now. I did something very rarely good today, and I met a really good friend for a coffee, and we just had a good chat. And the standard of the conversation, what we're talking about, is completely normal conversation now. We would never have been having that with so many people a year ago, and I think it's moving so quickly that it's just wonderful to see. I think everything's exposing, but I think we're also exposing ourselves. I think at a global level, we are really seeing through the deception. And once you see one thing, then you see it in the next thing, the next. It's quite unbelievable. I mean, I thought Prince Charles must be amazing because he's into homeopathy and he does organic vegetables. And now look, what did I know? So it is funny when you look at how superficial. And I think then that's also reflecting back on us as individuals, where we're having to take a really, really close look at ourselves in a way that we've never done before. And taking real personal responsibility for how we're living our lives, how we've chosen to react to things, who we're going to listen to and who we're going to surround ourselves with, because that is massive, isn't it, in terms of the energy that you're surrounding yourself with. Is it things that are supporting you? You can have very difficult conversations with people that you know are in your best interest.
Yeah.
And then you can have other ones that is pretty obvious it's not in your best interest and they're just projecting their stuff onto you. So I do think, though, it's the same community. What I've not seen at all personally in the people that I know personally is I haven't seen any new people waking up recently. In fact, I was talking with some of my friends at the weekend. I see the ones that are brainwashed, even more brainwashed. I mean, what they're posting on social media about how they're saving humanity by having multiple, and they genuinely believe it, in their heart of hearts. So that does worry me about this huge divide. It's like you're living in completely different worlds. It's like you've got one bit of the population, the ones who are watching here, living in one reality, and the other lot living in another. And to me, they seem to be getting further apart.
Well, you and I have talked about this before. We always wondered how, in the Bible, they say separating the wheat from the chaff, or whatever the expression is. And a lot of people, were talking about ascension and how some people would remain in 3D, some people would move to 5D. And I always wondered, how's that going to happen? If my brother's in 3D or my sister, I'm just giving an example. How's it going to happen? Are they going to another planet, which is 3D? Am I going to another planet, which is 5D? I always figured, how's this separation going to happen? Well, it's happening right in front of our face. What you just described there is this huge separation now. Where it goes from here, that I don't know. Do we eventually come back together? Or do we actually go part our ways? And perhaps this is part of the mass exodus plan that many people are talking about, including yourself and Janine and myself. We're trying to be careful in this discussion, not to put people into the fear frequency, because there are a lot of souls on this planet who are choosing to exit this planet at this time, and they're choosing one of the mechanisms that is available to them right now, which we don't need to get into in this show. So it's possible that that's how this separation is happening. I don't know. But going back to this conversation about, is it possible that they're in a rush for all of this? You mentioned something, you said, yeah, when we talk about all of these low-level cons, and you and I talked about this before, the left-right paradigm, we're missing the bigger picture. And the fact that we in this community can sit here and have this conversation is absolutely amazing. We're having a higher level conversation. Julie Cole says, yes, I agree with you, JC. Lots being exposed by the DS. And I'm sure the Galactics are helping behind the scene. Okay, so again, the bigger picture. Let me bring this in. So now we have a move in the States, presumably, to try to quash, to demolish, to abolish the Space Force. And yet the introduction of the Space Force was exactly that. Well, there's many things behind it, but what it did for part of the normies was to bring to light the fact that, hey, if we have a Space Force, we might have issues in space. We might have opportunities in space. It brought our level of thinking a little bit higher to the fact that we're not in an enclosed system here on the planet, and that perhaps there are actors who are off-world who absolutely manipulate our being here on Earth and our trajectory in our own human evolution. So these are conversations that need to happen, yet now we're being told, oh, perhaps we can't talk about that. Let's put that one back in the box. So I was very surprised when I saw this one here, but at the same time, I'm not. But I think it's still a good indication, and Janine and I were talking about this yesterday, that perhaps something big is on the horizon also, which would suggest that we needed to put this Space Force back in the news here in the last couple of days, again, to bring it in the forefront of human consciousness so that Julie Cole and other people in the chat can realize, yeah, there's bigger picture at play here, and there are other people, including the Galactics, who are involved here. So let's get into that topic. And how comfortable are you, Catherine, maybe either sharing some of your experiences, if you've had experiences with Galactics, or if you know other people who've come on your show that have shared their own personal encounters, perhaps, and how they've received messages as to how they're acting on our behalf or in support of humanity during these transitional times.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I have always said, I had this conversation with Janine, in one respect, I've said, I have never met someone from another planet, but I very quickly corrected with myself with that, because personally, I think I see them in animal form. So, and it was one of the questions I asked Janine, because I'm pretty sure one of my cats, and it's just this one, Idris, everyone who watches me knows Idris, I'm obsessed with him, but he is unlike any animal I've ever experienced. And I am 100% convinced, and Janine's card backed it up, that that he is from a different planet. Because I've always been able to, all of us can, but I've always been very able to communicate with animals and nature telepathically. It's always come very easily to me. Haven't always been able to admit it to people, but it always has. And I think for me, I did think until recently that I hadn't been communicating with people from other planets. And then I had a real aha moment a few months ago when I thought, I'm sure I have actually. I think they just present themselves to me in animal form, because the messages that they're giving are literally out of this world, you know. So I don't know. Do animals just connect with the beings from the other planets and pass those messages on, which is another possibility. But I've got a lot of friends that have seen literally, you know, green men, they've been taken to spaceships, they've done this, it's completely real. And that I 100% believe it. I find it amazing that people do think we're alone in this universe. That to me is the ridiculous thing.
Yeah, for me too, yeah.
I find it very exciting because I think on an energetic level, and touch wood, it's worked out for me so far, you attract what you give out. So I'm not worried about, I think of course there's good and bad everywhere, but I think you attract what you resonate with. So I find it quite exciting. I think it's just a case of sometimes our minds put a visual expression round in a way that we can cope with. So I think for me, I probably see them as animals. I think for other people, they see them more as what you'd see in the telly, as a little green man or a big grey man or something. I think we all probably interpret it through our human senses in different ways, possibly. So I would think a lot more of us have actually had encounters than possibly we even realise, is my thoughts, because that suddenly occurred to me when I thought I hadn't. And I thought, well, actually I have. I'm just seeing them in a different way. I think absolutely, undoubtedly, there's too many things that just do not make sense. We have got to have had visitations throughout the whole of history. You know, you look at the pyramids, you look at certain caves, you look at certain tools, you look at past cities, you look at intelligences. And I think they are helping a lot of us now, because I think a lot of us are now reusing, learning to use without even realizing it, what they've called our junk DNA. So, for example, I've been following, I love Joe Dispenza's work. I think he's amazing. And what he's doing is teaching people to access exactly that. And I'm seeing a huge awakening in so many different people of using different parts of their genetics that they just haven't had access to before, or they haven't realized they've had access to. And I think it's going up like this. I really do. I think it's really exciting.
Yes, and I'm a big fan of Joe as well. And what I think is happening also now, and perhaps it ties into what Tamara and perhaps what Doreen was saying, is that something in the universe is also helping us now to activate, to remember what's in that dormant DNA, perhaps through these, what Dr. Paul Violette called galactic superwaves. So universe is on our side. I feel that. I truly, like, deep down in a knowing, feel that. And perhaps that's why everybody on the other side is going absolutely crazy and bonkers right now, because they feel that their time is up also. So they're acting like cornered animals. And this is what we're seeing now. Fascinating times. Man, I gotta tell you. Okay, Spicy Dane. JC, do you have the link to Janine's Uncensored from yesterday? I believe you're talking about the Australia one. So yes, let me bring that up. That was yesterday. Yes. Okay. We recorded 2 yesterday, but one is going to be coming out later tonight. So this is the one from yesterday. Of course, it's the uncensored of that particular topic without mentioning that. I'm just going to bring that down the link in the live chat for you guys here. All right. And speaking of Janine, was it Libby who just said, yes, Janine just did a drive-in chat? Yes. And she probably mentioned this one. Let me see if I can bring this up. You guys are going to be so excited. We finally have a date and a time for Janine's housewarming party. So it will be on October 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern. So for now, we are simulcasting both on Janine's Sending Raven channel and my channel here at Beyond Mystic. So we'll be dropping in to Janine's house here on the 3rd at 3 p.m. along with her other friends in physicality who will be joining her for this housewarming. So mark your calendars for that. We're going to have a great time. And Catherine, of course, you're welcome to join me. Actually, if you like, you can join me on this live stream and we can be together on the live stream with Janine. So I'll send you the link. Okay.
I don't need an excuse for a glass of champagne, that's for sure. So I will be definitely getting that in. It is so exciting, isn't it? And I think, it's just, yes, as Elisa saying, Janine is adorable. She is absolutely adorable.
Absolutely.
And, so happy to see her and her lovely cats installed in their new home.
Right, absolutely. And I'm having so much fun. Janine and I are producing so much material. Guys, if you want to check that out, if you're already a member here and you're often purchasing the pay-per-views a la carte, another thing you might be interested in is the last Crypto Woo, the Beyond Crypto Woo report from last Friday. In it, we get into the financial transition that we're in now, and there's a big segment on silver. I had just done a very, very important interview with Cliff High and David Morgan the week before, entitled The Silver Woo, which you can find for free. That one I put on our BitChute. Again, because of the language, we couldn't put it here on YouTube, but it is free on my BitChute. And anyways, Janine and I decoded that even further for you guys, and we came up with some fascinating things. So let me bring that link down for you guys here as well in the chat. And so that's the Beyond Crypto Woo report number 5.
I'm definitely going to be tuning into that one, Jean-Claude, because I absolutely love silver. I've always been a bit obsessed with silver. And until all this really hit, you know, I didn't realize that normal people could buy gold and silver, and now we all are. And I think it's just really important. Again, it's putting our attention and energy, and a lot of people have asked me and sort of said, you know, but you need loads of money to do it. But you don't. You can buy one coin if you like. Just start somewhere if you're drawn to.
Mm-hmm. And especially now, what Janine and I were decoding is the timing of all of this. People have been saying for a long time that this manipulation would end. And of course, I asked Cliff High and David Morgan, the Silver Guru, why this time was different. So they both gave us an answer, but the cards also supplemented that answer here in the Beyond Crypto Woo report. So if you guys want to figure out why this time is very different, as Catherine is saying, and the fact that you can empower yourself with some physical silver, do go check out this episode. And what was really cool about this too, Andy Sheckman from Miles Franklin, he absolutely loves these shows. And he says, JC, can I do a special with you, a promo just for you and Janine, and give you guys a special discount on silver? I'm like, why? Sure, of course, the audience would love that. So let me actually play you that 30-second clip from Andy Sheckman. And of course, we'll share that coupon that was only at that point for the Insider Access Pass members. We'll share it here for all of you guys live. So let me play that here now.
Hi, everybody. It's Andy Sheckman from Miles Franklin Precious Metals. I know you've all seen me on JC's show, but I'm also a proud BeyondMystic Insider Access Pass member. That's a tongue twister. And I absolutely love the content, especially the Beyond Crypto Woo financial forecasts with Jean-Claude and Janine. JC, you guys do such an amazing job educating the audience. And in an effort to support what you guys are doing and your fantastic community, I'm offering this exclusive discount to the BeyondMystic audience. I'm offering you guys silver kilo Valcambi bars, brand new from Switzerland at only $2.25 over the price of silver. I know that's the very best deal you can find, period. Love you guys. Live long and prosper. See you next week.
Thank you so much, Andy. For clarity for the folks, that's beyondmystic.net/BCW, as in Beyond Crypto Woo -silver. So BCW-silver is where you guys can get your hands on this particular discount from Andy Sheckman at Miles Franklin. Now back to the show. Right. It's so funny to have Andy on here. And folks, yes, let me bring that link down for you guys as well, because a lot of you were asking, hey, where could I find this link if I wasn't on the Insider Access Pass team? So here's the link now. And of course, the last coupon code, just so you know, when Andy gave us a special for the Cliff High and David Morgan Silver Rule report, within 2 days, they sold out of all of their Noah coins. So it was very, very popular. And this is an even better price than the last one. So guys, if you're looking for this, is absolutely an amazing deal. The links are now in the live chat. Catherine, what a crazy time. We're already at the hour mark. It's just, you guys get together. It's absolutely amazing. Let us know here what's going on. What's new with Catherine Edwards.life here? What can people expect here? And how can we support you at this channel here?
Oh, thank you. Well, I've really, a lot of the interviews I've been doing recently are either on this, are on my website or on my BitChute channel, because they're ones that cannot go on the platform that we're currently on. So please do that. The other thing I'm really trying to do is proactively support people with products that I use and really value. So on my products page, those are the ones that I've got affiliate links from. There's everything from CDS to the silver link for the people in the UK, to a brilliant products with the root brands and things if people want to be looking at detoxing their systems and things. So I think for me, because I've worked in natural health and holistic health for so long now for humans and animals, I've really been concentrating a lot of my efforts on what people can practically do to support themselves and their animals at this time. So please do take a look at my website. Keep an eye on the products tab as well, because there's new things being added there all the time. And I literally only put things on there that I use and know well myself and, 100% recommend. And I am doing quite a lot of work with various different animal rescue charities as well. So I do have a buy me a herb for the animals and a donate button on there. So if anyone feels drawn to do that, all the rescue animals will be very, very grateful. So that you helped me set up, actually, because I'm so hopeless at technology. So thank you so much for that, Jean-Claude.
You're very welcome. So here's the link now in the live chat to Catherine's donate button. I absolutely love the way you've proposed this as well. Very well done. You're doing well, Catherine. I love it. So next week, or in next 2 weeks, I believe, is our next show. It's going to be installment number 5 of this World of Enchantment, and you will be at the controls again from your end of things. So I'm excited to that one. Folks, maybe wait a day or two here for Catherine and I to make sure we got our timing right, but we will be setting up the poster here for our next episode. In the meantime, please remember to like, share, and subscribe here on our 3rd backup channel. And of course, tonight, we have Solreda coming up at 6 o'clock. This is the 18th episode of Simulated Reality. It's going to be a really fun reading for the audience here. And also, of course, at 8 o'clock Eastern, Tarot by Janine. So Janine and I are now doing 2 shows a week here on the live streams. There's so much demand and there's so much happening in the news media that we thought, hey, we'd increase our production from 1 to 2 shows a week here on YouTube. So please join us for that. And tomorrow, again, on the topic of the Down Under and the kangaroos, join us for this Galactic download with Indigo Angel. This episode was supposed to air last Friday, but Indigo asked me to push it back a little bit here. She wanted to download a few more things. And again, crazy stuff coming out from her field of view on to what's happening down there as well. So you don't want to miss that. And tomorrow night also, Bo Pony is back on the show with his latest financial forecast and how all of this ties into the fall in the fall. So you guys probably know what we're talking about there. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at Beyond Mystic, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day, everyone. Au revoir.
Thank you. Bye.